Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. So tonight we have Scott Paddock with us. Hi Scott, how are you?
Hi, how's everyone doing?
So it's really nice to have you here. We have a lot of questions, and I hope people will also have. We actually already have some comments from people, so that's crazy. It's first time we have comments before the live. So yeah, it's a good sign. So yeah, if you have tonight is special. It's more about a discussion between Scott and us. So if you have some question, please ask them in the comments, and we will answer them with Scott. So to start, I have some question about your last tour. So before the pandemic, so you were touring with Eros Ramazzotti, and I remember actually it was the first time we met. Like it was during that tour. It was a nice show, and yeah, I wanted to know, or I already know, but let's let's um, talk with people like about how did you get in touch with Eros, and what was the story to start that tour?
Right. Yeah, so we just finished up a tour. It was about 15 months. It was a world tour where we did 30 countries, mostly Europe and South America, a little bit of North America also. I had never heard of Eros. They sent me a message that went to my email, and it went to my junk email because I wasn't friends with them. I didn't know who they were. Then they sent me a message through Facebook that actually went to my Facebook junk email because we weren't Facebook friends. And then finally, they sent me a message on Instagram. This is over about a month of them trying to contact me. And it went to my Instagram, and I get questions to do things on, requests to do things on Instagram all the time. So I didn't really think it was serious, but I always look it up. So I Googled it. I Googled Eros Ramazzotti, and the first video came up, and it had 300 million views.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, what is this? What is this? So I click on the next video, and it's him singing in an arena with like thousands of people singing every word to every song. And I was like, all right, so this is the real deal. And obviously, I looked it up, and he had sold 70 million records, and huge pop star that I just, in the United States, he's not super famous because he doesn't sing in English. So the first thing I did was like look up to see if it was real. And I was like, oh, this is real. This guy is real. These people are real. And I ended up a couple months later, 5 months later, I was in Italy doing rehearsals and went on tour with him. It was fantastic. It was one of the most amazing experiences, especially as a saxophone player, to be on a pop tour. Because oftentimes, especially with more modern music, when you're the saxophone player on a pop tour, like you're on the back riser with no lights on you, and you're like playing 2 or 3 notes and doing that, doing some dance moves. With Eros, there's a lot of saxophone solos. Like I was on,
Yeah.
I was on about half of the songs, and the majority of the time I was on there, I was in the front of the stage taking a solo. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we can see it on the back. Like it was like a huge scene, and yeah, you were like the solo guy. Like we could see you on the big screen, and it was yeah, it was really great.
the
So
most the most intimidating thing about that show, especially the first 5 or 10 shows, is I didn't come out until the 5th song. So as a musician, you go out and usually like the first couple songs, like you're warming up, you're playing, you're feeling good, you kind of ease your way into it. I come out on the 5th song. The band's already been playing, obviously, and when I start to play, it's the song we play is Terra Promesa, and it starts off with an Eric Moore drum solo. So I don't know who knows Eric Moore, but he's like a huge famous chop drummer who's just fantastic. Gigantic drum solo with lights going. It's insane. And then at the very end of his drum solo, the lights go black, and there's a spotlight on me on the front of the stage, and I play one of his biggest hook lines in the song. And that's the first note that I play in the show. So it's like I just kind of walk out. There's an amazing drum solo going on. It's all black, and then spotlight, and then play. So
ready, you have to be
yeah,
ready.
there's no warm up. There's one time where my mic didn't work. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, as a saxophone player, that's kind of like the dream. Is like you're in an arena full of people, and you get that moment where you're on the front of the stage playing.
Yeah. So it's really funny the story, because he's not really famous in the United States, but in France, like all the people that lived during the 90s, they all know Eros Ramazzotti because he was on the radio all the time. So it was fun when you told me the story. Like
yeah, all over Europe, I'll be like in a coffee shop or someplace in a bar someplace, and his music will come on. And his shows are people with tattoos, like Eros tattoos, and it's like, wow, okay. Like the first show, like you get a really big idea of like, oh, okay, this is the level that we're at here. So it was a lot of fun, and the stage was crazy, and there's 40-person crew and 10 tractor trailer trucks that go with us. The whole thing was just a huge production.
What was your favorite show on the tour?
That one, this Verona was pretty amazing just because it was 3 nights. It was on a huge stage in such a historic spot. And obviously in Italy, like Eros is just, he's in the history books there. So that was a lot of fun. But the Ziggo Dome in Amsterdam was pretty awesome too. There were a lot of them that were just amazing.
So at that point, you were traveling a lot. And what was your favorite city in Europe?
I don't know if I have favorites, because we went to 30 countries, and it was like, you know, when you're traveling like that, every 2 or 3 days you're in a different city, so it's even hard to keep track of where you are. But I loved Paris. Like I absolutely loved Paris. I loved Rome. That was amazing. Prague was amazing. Venice blew my mind that there's an entire city built on poles. Like it's just mind blowing. And Moscow was pretty cool.
Okay. So we already have some questions. So it's questions about your mouthpiece. How is the new Berry Scott? Also, I'm enjoying the school, and I bought me a Syos for my alto, and it's great. It's not a Scott Paddock on the alto yet.
Yeah, right. So, as you probably know, if you follow me on social media, my Berry saxophone was stolen a couple months ago. A guy broke into my house and stole my Berry saxophone. It's the craziest thing to steal ever. And my new MacBook Pro computer. So I had been playing the same Berry mouthpiece and Berry saxophone and all that for years. It was actually my brother's. He was a Berry saxophone player. And when he stopped playing, he gave it to me. So I had never even picked out Berry gear. I just was like, all right, I'm playing this. So when it was stolen, I contacted you right away, and you already have a really good idea of what I like and how I like to sound and what my mouthpieces are like from my tenor and my soprano. So I sent Pauline a message. I was like, my Berry saxophone mouthpiece was stolen, and I have no idea what I want. Make it sound like my tenor. And they sent me a couple mouthpieces, and the first one I put on, there were 2 that were really close, and then the one that I picked is just amazing. It's just so easy to play the low notes. It's got a big fat sound. When I play Berry Sax, like I like to play funky bass lines and really punchy notes, and this mouthpiece is just effortless to do that. Let me grab it. Let me play a couple notes.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully this doesn't blow everyone's ears off. So the low notes just pop right out. Which on a Berry Sax, you're playing a lot of low notes and they sound super cool. So the fact that they just pop out effortlessly, I mean, it's just a dream of a mouthpiece and a setup. I got the Pimoria 300 DK, and it's just a fantastic horn. When I went to buy the new saxophone, I tried 3 Pimorias, and they all sounded great and really different. But this one just had such a big, fat, crisp, and clear sound. Which, that was a crazy experience. Was I went to buy a new Berry Sax, and I obviously didn't have a Berry Sax to test it with. I had a mouthpiece that I'd never played My
Really?
signature and my reed were the same, but I'm going to like buy this new Berry Sax without any gear, so I'm just sitting in there for like an hour and a half, switching things in and out, trying to figure out what works.
But yeah, at the end, it seems to be a good setup. So
I
it's
love
nice.
it. Yeah, and actually, I mean, I like this horn and this mouthpiece so much better than my old setup. I had a Yamaha Purple Label and a old Berg Larson, and I used to really like that. And then I picked this up. It's a whole nother level of just the way a saxophone should sound.
So you didn't find the old saxophone back?
I didn't, but they arrested the guy. They found the guy.
Oh.
I tracked him down because I have cameras in my house. When I'm out on tour, I have an assistant who comes in and takes care of stuff at my house. So I have cameras inside my house just so I can see what's going on when I'm out of town. And they're just on all the time. So when the guy broke in, I had a camera. I mean, I had pictures of him in the house doing stuff. So I put it on my neighborhood group, and people recognized him and told me where they lived. And I sent it to the police, and they arrested him.
Oh,
But
okay.
he had already gotten rid of my saxophone.
Oh.
Arrested him. So.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy story, but if you are happy at the end, it's nice.
It ended up working out well. Like, I'm glad that I have this saxophone, and it wouldn't have happened had someone not stolen the other one. So
yeah, that's true.
I like my setup.
Okay.
The idea of someone breaking into my house is not such a great idea.
Yeah, no, that's not. Okay. So since we were talking about the alto sax, we have an embarrassing questions because Pauline is here because he's saying, why do you still play your Brazilian mouthpiece and not the Syos on the alto?
I just, as a level of like comfort, I've been playing the Barclay Brazil for a while. I've tried some Syos mouthpieces on alto and I really like them. When it comes to gear, I usually only play it if it's like absolutely what fits, and some of the Syos stuff, alto mouthpieces have been very close, but not quite what I'm looking for yet on the alto. But I use it on the Berry, tenor, and soprano.
Yeah, and
so
right
it's
now
weird playing too. Like, I have Barclay Brazil people asking me why I don't play Barclay Brazil on everything else, and Syos people tell me why I don't play Syos on everything. So it's just a matter of like kind of what speaks on that horn.
Okay, yeah. And so we have another questions. Okay, from Chris. Your amazing Altissimo, does Syos mouthpiece help to produce it? Any tips to share within this field?
Yeah, let me grab my tenor for that. My Berry Altissimo isn't really there, but my tenor is fairly good. So when it comes to Altissimo, it's all about getting your tongue in the right position. So when you're trying to get your Altissimo out, you want your tongue up really high and pushing forward. So if this is your tongue, you want to do this and go forward with it. And that's going to help a lot. And a trick that I've been using forever, I can't even remember who told me this. Someone told me this like when I was like in college, like early college, is if this is your embouchure when you're playing regularly, when you go for your Altissimo, when you know you're getting ready to go up to the Altissimo, sneak this bottom lip down a little bit. So you're taking in a little bit more mouthpiece, and that lets the reed vibrate more. And up there, when your reed is vibrating more, you're going to get a bigger, fatter sound. So if I just do Altissimo without moving my bottom lip, like for me, it doesn't even really want to come out, and it's not that big of a sound. When I do it with my lip out, I can get those things effortlessly with no problem at all. So I don't know how this is translating on my phone with the recording.
We can hear the Altissimo, yeah.
So the trick is getting your tongue up really, really high. If your tongue doesn't go up high enough, you're not going to get that note. It's going to sound like this. You're going to get these, like, I call them furps, because it sounds like a furp when you play. So if your tongue is not up high enough, you're going to get this weird sound. And as soon as you get your tongue up in the right position, that note's going to pop right out.
Okay. Yeah, since we are talking about teaching, you just started a new sax school a few days ago. Can you talk a little bit about that new school?
Yeah, I've been teaching saxophone forever. Like my dad was a junior high band director, so I grew up in a band room. And when I was in 8th grade, I was teaching the 6th graders. So I can still honest, I've been teaching forever. So, and I've always really enjoyed it, even when I haven't had to do it for financial reasons. I've always kept teaching lessons just because I've enjoyed doing it. I wrote a jazz method book, a saxophone method book, right after I got out of college, and I've just been doing it forever. I've been planning on doing this saxophone school for a while. I started doing tutorials on YouTube, and those became pretty successful and pretty popular. And I would get questions about stuff all the time, and a lot of people asking me for lessons. And I only had so many spots for lessons. And then when I went out on tour with Eros, I didn't have any spots for lessons, and I got even more requests for it. So I had always planned on putting together an online saxophone school, and then the pandemic hit and we were on lockdown and I didn't have anything going on. So I spent 5 months building the saxophone school. And because of the lockdown, I actually went way deeper into it than I had initially planned on doing. So initially I was just going to kind of do it around my sound and my style. But with all the extra time, I just went from the very beginning, from this is a saxophone, beginner saxophone, all the way up into how to improvise and funk style and how to make things sound better, all the technique work, scales, theory. I just kind of did the whole thing. I launched it with over 120 lessons, which is a lot for launching an online music school.
Okay, so and how is it going?
It's going really well. Yeah, really, really. I thought it was going to do pretty well because I have a pretty big following with that, and I've gotten a ton of questions and a ton of requests for lessons. But on the day I launched it, I put a day and a time for people to show up. The Sax School was launching at 10 a.m. on October 9th, and so many people showed up that it crashed the website for 5 hours because I wasn't expecting that much traffic. So obviously I went to a bigger server. I got everything lined up. But yeah, we've got a bunch of students in there now, a bunch of members. I've got students from over 35 countries, and this is going great. The feedback's been really good, and I'm continuing to build out and just kind of putting in more and more stuff. The next course that's going to come up is like a funk improv course where I just had a bunch of custom backing tracks made, which I'm super excited about.
Nice. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it's Scott Paddock, saxschool.com. You can see it on the banner here.
Yeah, that's it.
So you talked about the lockdown, and I was wondering, so does your strong online presence help deal with the lack of live show, or did you handle the lockdown? Did you do other things about except from the sax school? What was your thing?
Yeah, I had been pretty active on social media for a while. I actually, about 5 years ago, I kind of not mistakenly, but just kind of, I was dating a girl. I had been doing a photography thing because I do that as a hobby. And I had an Instagram for photography. And she was like, why don't you do one for your saxophone? And I was like, I do everything for my saxophone. I just want one thing that's not saxophone related. She was like, just post the video of you playing the saxophone. And I posted a video of me playing the saxophone, and it got like 5 times more views and likes and everything else than any photography thing I'd ever done. I was like, oh, maybe I should do more of this. And then it just kind of kept going. And then I got into YouTube, and actually I have 2 kind of different personas. On Instagram, it's mostly me playing the saxophone, and on YouTube, it's mostly me teaching the saxophone. So I've been doing that for a while and developed a nice following with that. So when the pandemic hit, I just kind of transitioned into spending a lot more time with that, and obviously the saxophone school. So I already had a following of people, so I could kind of keep things going. Whereas people who have not been doing the social media thing and the YouTube thing, everyone suddenly started trying to do it, and there's no traction there because everyone's trying to do it.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to that, I get asked about social media a lot. The biggest thing that you can do with social media, if you're trying to like develop an audience, there's 2 things. The first is just be really consistent with posting. Like if you post once a week, that's not going to help. You need to be posting 3 or 4 times a week. And even more important than that is you need to have like a sound and a point of view. So don't just play random stuff all of the time or try to sound like someone else. Try to figure out what your sound is and work your way through that and have your own point of view when you're playing. Like playing a bunch of patterns and a bunch of licks is not going to help you develop a following because they're just patterns and licks. You need to come up with a sound.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So we have a question from Thomas. He's asking, "What's your favorite Syos mouthpiece apart from yours? Did you try some other?"
I have a ton of Syos mouthpieces just because when I tried my Syos mouthpiece, I met you in Paris, and I tried a bunch of them, and this is the same one that I started playing from that day, even though I have a couple different versions of the same mouthpiece, but I haven't played any others.
Yeah.
When people, like when I see the reviews, like Berry Sax did reviews, Sax 5 did reviews, they usually compare mine. They usually have mine and Chad LB's, like they're usually going back and forth between them, and they say they're similar but very different. So I assume I would probably enjoy, like similar in that they have a big sound, but mine's like a little bit brighter and a little bit more step on the gas, and his is has a little bit more of a darkness and more of his tone. And with mine, what's funny, whenever I hear the reviews, they always, because of I play mostly funk and pop stuff when I'm doing live shows and that kind of stuff. So everyone expects my mouthpiece just to like scream and be in your face, and everyone's blown away that it has like a really soft subtone, subtle side to it. So if you listen to my tone and the way I play, I kind of call what I do, I have extreme dynamics where I play really soft and really loud in everything I'm playing. So even if I'm playing funk lines, so you hear a lot of the loud notes, but those are the goal main notes. In between those, I have what I call setup notes, which are the softer notes. So when I play it slower, you can hear it a little bit better. So I have like super soft notes and super loud notes. And when I have those soft notes, it makes the loud notes sound louder because of the contrast. So for my mouthpiece, it has a lot of contrast. So and then with my tenor mouthpiece, I told Pauline when I was ordering it that I wanted like a big fat bright sound that could play soft. So when I did my soprano mouthpiece, I actually like a darker sound on soprano. And my biggest problem with soprano mouthpieces in general is that I can't get enough air into them. I really focus my air when I play. I have very fast moving airstream to help me get a big sound. The faster your air is moving, the more your reed is going to vibrate. So on the soprano, I could never find a mouthpiece where I could get enough air through it and get the sound I wanted. And when I put the soprano mouthpiece on, I was just like, I can actually play and get my air through the mouthpiece. And it's on the darker side. I don't want a bright sounding soprano mouthpiece. It's already bright enough up there that high.
Okay, can we get some soprano?
I haven't played this one yet today. Let's see what happens. Little Eros Ramazzotti right there, little Pia Bellicosa.
Nice.
Yeah, with the soprano on the show. So the crazy thing with the Eros show is it was soprano, tenor, and alto. And it was pretty much split up between all three of them. But I would go 5 or 6 songs before I would play my soprano, or 3 or 4 songs before I'd play my tenor, or I'd have a break. So it was really crazy trying to keep all of the saxophones running and working and warmed up and ready to play at the same time. Like I said, most of my stuff was I was playing solos. So there was no like play a little horn line and warm up and make sure everything's working. It was like literally on Soprano, Eros has a song called Musica A, where I start the song and I'm literally out in the very front of the stage. The stage is black. It's completely silent. The song starts, the spotlight hits me, and I play this huge soprano line. And it's like, there's no warm up. There's no, I wonder if it works. So you just have to have gear that you're super confident about. So with this, and I also use Leger reeds. That helps a lot. So I couldn't imagine doing a gig like that where I'm like trying to keep my reeds wet. I'm like trying to make sure everything's working and all that with the Leger reeds and the BG ligature. Pick the saxophone up, play a couple notes backstage, then go play the thing, and usually it works.
Yeah, actually, we have a question of Patrick about the Leger signature. So use it on all your saxophone?
I use Leger signatures. I used Leger signatures on all of my saxophones until they came out with the American cut. And I really love that American cut on my alto. So I've only had one of their reeds on there. I've almost killed that reed after a couple months. So they're sending me some more to keep going with them. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to switch to the American cut on the alto. So, and I actually use a small reed size on most of my instruments, but definitely alto. I use a 2.25, which I have a pretty big sound, and everyone expects me to say that I have a 3 or a 3.25 or something. But the way all my gear is set up, I like something where I don't have to like kill myself to get a really big sound.
Okay. Question is from Bernard. Why do you not use the Syos ligature?
So I put the Syos ligature on, but I had already been using the BG Silver Duo on all my saxophones, and I really like it. I put the Syos ligature on when I first started playing the tenor, just to try it, and it sounded good and it sounded fine. I had just already been playing the BG, and I just preferred it a little bit more. I never honestly gave the Syos ligature a real try just because I was already playing the BG and I was happy with it. So I never like kind of A/B tested it back and forth. I put on the Syos ligature. I was like, it still sounds good. We put the BG on. So there's no real reason.
Yeah, it's okay. We are friends with BG. So
yeah. Rob came out to Lyon. He lives in Lyon, France. He came out to the show in Lyon. So that was another cool thing about the show is I got to see a bunch of the people with the companies that I work with who were all over the world. They came out to shows and we hung out. Same with Leger when I was in, where was that? Toronto. I hung out with the Leger people in Toronto. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So we have a question from Donna. So it's about your favorite stuff, the tip opening.
I can't read. I don't have my glasses.
So what tip would you use for tenor for small club jazz?
I don't think that there is a specific tip opening for any person or any setting. It all comes down to how you play and how you put air through the saxophone. So I don't think like a 5 tip opening or an 8 tip opening is something that you have to play for any specific setting. But I think it all comes down to like how you play and how you put air through the saxophone. And there's no right answer to that. Like there's no like, size 8 tip opening is the best. That's not true for anyone. It's like, for me, the size tip opening I have is the best for me. And if someone else played that same tip opening, it might not be the best for them. They might need to go up or down a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. It's always, it also depends on what reeds you play, what you are used to, what you want to achieve. So
right. And what's funny, and Pauline knows this about me, is like I'm not a big gear person as far as like I put it on and if it plays and I like it, that's what I play and I'm super happy about it. And I can tell you about it and why I like it. But if you're like, what is the chamber size and tip opening of your soprano mouthpiece? I might have to look it up on the Syos mouthpiece. Or Syos
website.
I'm going to be like, I think
let me check.
It's like, I know it plays great. I'm not sure about anything else. So
yeah,
like guys like that, the sax spy guy, that guy, like that's his thing is mouthpieces and tip openings and chambers and reeds and how they all go together. So those guys know a lot about that. I just find something I really like, and then that's what I play.
Yeah, that's why we are here. Like we are the experts. We design the mouthpiece, and then you just need to play it and to tell us if it's good or not, and then we work on it.
Like when I'm talking about it, like when I get it, like when it's brand new, I know what it is. I can tell. Like I'm sure with Pauline, when I've told her what I wanted, I'm super specific about it. I send videos saying this is what I like. This is what I like. This is like but I don't really articulate it with tip opening size or chambers or this. I just say this is the sound I want. This is how I want to feel with resistance, that kind of stuff. And then Syos just translates it into a mouthpiece that works great for me.
Okay, we have a new question from Patrick. How long did it take to make the tenor Scott Paddock Syos Signature? How many trials? Actually, this one was pretty fast because we tried a lot of mouthpieces when I met you in Paris. So
yeah, it was crazy. So with the Soprano, that was the first thing that happened. I think I was trying to figure out exactly how we met, and I think it was Baz put up a picture of his Syos mouthpiece.
And that's true.
On it.
Yeah.
Something I was like, "Do you like it?" This was a couple years ago, and I was like, "Do you like it?" I think this was 2000. It had to be 2018 because I was doing this for all of 2019. I was like, "Do you like it? I've been hearing stuff about Syos," and he's like, "Yeah, I really like it." And then you sent me a message. You're like, "I bet you'll like it too. Do you want to try some?" Like, at that time, I was looking for a new soprano mouthpiece because I knew I was doing this tour, and the mouthpiece I had, I liked, but it wasn't an arena size mouthpiece. It wasn't something that like I could really project on. And we sent a couple messages back and forth, and then this soprano mouthpiece came, and I put it on. I was like, I don't think it's come off since then. Like I was like, that's it. Then when I was in Paris, we had talked about meeting, and I was playing a Barclay Brazil tenor mouthpiece at that time that I liked. Didn't love it. I had some issues with my middle D. On tenor, I've always had some issues with my middle D, just sounding like really crisp and really clear. And I liked the mouthpiece better than any mouthpiece I had played up to that point, but I didn't love it. And then we met at the arena in Paris, and Pauline came in with a bag of mouthpieces. And I was just like putting them on. And then when I put this one on, it felt great right away. And I didn't play it on the show that night, but I went back to the Barclay Brazil that night. And after playing on this mouthpiece, I could hardly play the Barclay Brazil anymore. And from the next show on, I've been playing the Syos.
Nice.
So again, like that kind of goes back to my original thing. It's like, I'm not a huge gear person. I just kind of find what I like, and then I just play that. I'm happy to play that.
Yeah. So Thomas was asking if it was a Pimoria. I guess it's about the soprano saxophone.
Yeah, they're all Pimorias. This is a System 76. That's a 66 RX. The alto is a 67 RX, and that is a 300 DK. So I'm a huge fan of Pimorias. I love Pimorias. So when I found my first Pimoria, I started on the alto. I had a student who was going to buy a new saxophone, and I went with him. And there's a thing called Horn of Plenty in the United States where they have all these saxophones lined up. It's like a special thing that happens once a year. And there were literally like 30 saxophones on tables all over, like just lined up one after the next. And I went down and played them all. And then the 67 RX was literally the last one I played. And I almost didn't play it because these have sterling silver keys. So they're kind of like flute keys. And I picked it up and it felt weird. And I was like, this is just some weird gimmick. This is not my saxophone. And then I played it. And I was like, what is going on? It has such a huge sound. And I think it has something to do with there being no glue for the pearls. So for like this one has glue on it to keep the pearls in. So with the 67 RX, there's nothing that's taking away any vibration. So they just have a huge sound to them.
Okay. So Chris is asking, do you have a specific warm-up routine before jumping in a gig? Any tips for us?
I should have a warm-up. I have a warm-up routine that I tell people, but I don't always follow it. Although, like during the pandemic, I do because I had so much free time. So the first thing I do whenever I pick up my saxophones is I just play through all my major scales. So just go through it, get my fingers working, play everything. And then from there, usually I'll do some kind of long tone work where either I just play a note and hold it, or I match a pitch with like tonal energy tuner or something like that. I do a lot of stuff with overtones. I use overtones pretty functionally, and I work on those a lot. So I consider that kind of like my tone and pitch work. And then from there, I usually go into technique stuff. I'm always working on technique, just trying to get my fingers moving faster and cleaner. And then once you get that done, that should be like the first 10 to 15 minutes of your practice routine. And from there, it just kind of depends on what you're working on. Like if you're trying to learn a song, then work on playing the melody. If you're trying to transcribe something, work on that. Or if you're improvising, work on chords and chord outlines, changes, that kind of stuff. In my saxophone school, transition, in my saxophone school, I have everything lined up for like each level of player, like beginner, early, intermediate, early, advanced, and everything is set up in order, in line, and there's practice routines for each level. So with the sax school, I take the guesswork out of what to practice, how to practice it, what to practice next. It's just all kind of lined up for you. And it hits it from a tone perspective, from scales, technique stuff, learning songs, and just becoming a better saxophone all around, a better saxophone player all around.
Yeah, and I remember that during your tour, it was complicated because you couldn't keep your saxophone with you, so you could never practice. Huh?
It was crazy on tour. So if you have two saxophones, you can carry them with you because you can take them on a plane. So if I had soprano and alto, I would just put them in my case and carry them everywhere with me. When you have alto, tenor, soprano, you can't carry all three with you. And if you're going to check them, you need to have like a super sturdy case. So I had this insane case that like literally you could drop off a building and it would still be okay. But because of that, it traveled with the tour gear. So the only times I saw my saxophones or got to play my saxophones were on days that we played shows. So we played shows every 2 to 3, sometimes 4 days. So on tour, oftentimes I'd only play my saxophone 3 or 4 times a week. So it was a really big deal for me to make sure that I had a practice room in every place we were. So we had a band manager named Marissa, and Marissa would find me a practice room no matter where we went. So for an hour or so before the show, I would just literally, I didn't practice any melodies, any songs, any chord changes, anything except for I would do technique and long tones, and I would just do stuff to try to get my fingers and keep my fingers moving. So when I tried the mouthpiece, you were in one of my practice rooms, which was like this crazy locker room.
Yeah, locker room. It was strange. Like,
sorry, you're in the locker room with me.
Yeah.
But this is, one of my practice rooms. We played the Miami Heat Arena in Miami. I think it's the American Airlines Arena. It's where the Miami Heat play. And my practice room there was their workout room. Like there was like
wow,
their weights and their stuff, and all these pictures of Miami Heat players. It was really cool.
Did you do workouts during while you were playing saxophone?
I took pictures of me like squatting the saxophone and posted them on my Instagram.
Nice. Okay. You are on a desert island and you can only pick up one sax. Which one do you pick?
My main sax is alto. I've probably alto, tenor, Berry, soprano. But these days I play all of them. I play alto and tenor a lot. Berry mostly. The Berry doesn't leave my house that often, but I've done a lot of recording sessions on Berry. And then soprano gets pulled out usually when someone asks me to play soprano. And hopefully they ask me a couple days in advance so I can get it out and warm it up. And but I play alto and tenor a whole lot.
Okay. We had a previous question. I'm not sure about that, but Patrick says, how much does it take to make a tuto? So I don't know maybe Patrick, you can explain the question because I'm not sure I understand. What's the?
I think he's asking how long it takes me to make a tutorial. That's my guess.
How long? Maybe. Yeah.
If he's asking that, like I do tutorials on YouTube, and those usually are 10 to 15 minutes. I just kind of give you like a lot of information on one topic. Like we're talking about tonguing or how to improvise over a certain chord or a certain style of chords, or how to make a 4-measure phrase, a specific 4-measure phrase sound really good. I'll like dive really deep into that. And those take about an hour and a half to do, because you have to record it and then edit it and then put in all like the graphic stuff and then upload it and download it and do all the stuff. When I'm doing the ones for my school, they take a lot longer because they're a lot more involved. A lot of them are 20 to 30 minutes, and it's covering a lot of material, and I'm super specific about everything. I'm talking about a phrase, and there's like a little red arrow that comes down and shows you what phrase I'm talking about. So it depends on, there's a difference between my YouTube and my Sax School stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that was the question. Yeah, I was wondering who is the artist you are looking forward to playing with once we can have gigs again.
At this point, anyone who calls, I'm so excited. Especially my band. So like, I've had a band forever. I've had guys I played with. I've done CDs. I've done tracks. I've done all this stuff. But I was out on tour with Eros for 15 months before the pandemic. So I knew 4 or 5 months before that I was going out on tour with him. So I was winding things down for the tour. So then we came home. We lost our last gig because of the pandemic, and we came home in March, and then we were on lockdown, and then now it's October. So I haven't played with my own band since the end of 2018, just because of the way everything has been lined up. So with my own band, I want to play with more than anything else.
Yeah, that's long.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Eric Moore, who was the drummer on the tour also, and he does a bunch of big gigs also. He was like, I haven't done a real gig. Like I've done some like live stream things from clubs and that kind of stuff, but I haven't done like a gig where there's an audience and hundreds or thousands of people there since Canada in March with Eros.
Yeah, I hope we can go to live shows soon, but it's complicated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen on your bio that you perform as an opening act for Ray Charles. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, when I was in my early 20s, I was playing in a funk band, and Ray Charles was in town. He was coming to town, and he was playing in like a 4,000 or 5,000 seat. It was an outdoor pavilion. It's called Pier 6. And we got to be the opening act. I was like 21 or 22. And that was like one of my first big gigs, playing in front of a lot of people. And it was super cool, really great vibe. And I didn't get to meet Ray Charles, but he walked past me. So I was within like 2 feet of him. So
you didn't try to grab his arm.
No, I don't think that would go over very well. He had a security team with him. But then just to hear him play live, like he's one of those guys, like when I talk to students about trying to develop their sound, like he's one of the guys I reference all of the time, because he could grunt and it's musical and sounds cool, just like James Brown. Like he could just like do the most simple phrase, and the way he breathes, or the way he leans into a note, or just like a little bit of grit he puts on the note that he sings, it completely transforms it. Like he's not doing like musical acrobatics when he's singing something, or even when he's playing the piano. He's just like playing that one perfect thing at that one perfect time that just sounds amazing. Like he does that. Ray Charles does that. Maceo Parker does that. In a jazz style, like Chet Baker does that, where it's just like you put that note in the right spot and it just makes everything feel great. Like Ray Charles literally grunts. Like that's one of his things. Was like, I can't do it, but it's like you hear him do it and it's amazing, and it fits in that spot, and it's super musical.
Yeah. So we have last question from Patrick. Is also asking how long do you play sax every day?
Now, like with the pandemic, a lot. because I have so much free time, a couple hours a day. And I live in a Baltimore row house. So I have neighbors on both sides. So I'm sure they hate me because like it's just a constant between that and like doing tutorials and doing stuff for the sax school and teaching a few Skype lessons here and there. Like it's just a constant stream of saxophone playing going out of my house. So I probably practice about an hour to an hour and a half, but I probably play for 3 hours a day, 3.5 hours a day with everything that I'm doing.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I think I have. We did all the questions. Maybe you have something to add before we end the live.
Since I'm here for Syos, I will just say that if you're looking for a custom mouthpiece, like it really doesn't get better than Syos for custom mouthpieces, because that's what they do. Like the way I got this soprano mouthpiece is I literally said, I want a mouthpiece that is on the darker side for soprano, that I can put a whole bunch of air through, that has a big fat full sound. I don't know if I said tip opening or not. I don't know what information I put for that, but I just described exactly what I wanted. And then a couple of weeks later, it showed up in the mail. And same with like the tenor mouthpiece. When we were talking back and forth, I said, this is what I want. And this is how I play. And this is like, by that point, everyone's kind of heard me play because I have a pretty big presence with Instagram and that kind of stuff. So everyone kind of knows what my style is. But when I articulate how I want it to feel when I play it, they just build that mouthpiece, and then that's what you get.
Yeah.
Where like if you're trying to play something else, it's like you have to play that one model with that one. They have a couple different tip openings, but if that doesn't fit, then that's not the mouthpiece. So with Syos, it's just like, what do you want? If you don't know what you want, here's a bunch of artist series. Listen to a bunch of guys, see which one fits you best.
Yeah, thank you. We have a question from Chris. He said that it looks like you play keys also. How do you benefit from piano for saxophone?
I own this. I own this. I am not the world's best piano player at all. Like I can do it functionally just for myself. I would never play in front of people. And but for like when you're trying to figure out chords, you're trying to figure out chord structures, you're trying to figure out how things go together. Once you get past the intermediate level of playing, if like you really want to get to that next level, you actually need to play some type of chordal instrument, even if it's not at a high level, just enough so you can understand that you're playing this chord and you're going to this chord, and you can see when you're doing that on a piano or a guitar, the relation between the notes becomes so much more important. And when you understand that, it makes it way easier to make your solos flow, because you can see how these notes are connected and hear how everything is connected. And especially if you're trying to figure out the chords to a song, when you're doing it on a single note instrument like a saxophone, it's way harder because you have to kind of hunt and pick and figure out each note. Where on a piano, you just kind of keep messing around with it until you find the right notes. But no, I'm not a good piano player at all.
Okay, thank you. Can you just play just a little tune before we leave?
Oh, we're talking about berries today. Let me play on that. So what I love about playing Berry, and especially with this mouthpiece and this setup, is I like the funk lines. Like I like the really articulated stuff. Like Leo P made that, like, so that's what everyone wants to play. I had been doing that kind of stuff before him. Not that I originated by any means at all, but like when I heard him play it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the kind of stuff I like to play on Berry. And then like he did this whole other thing where he made it popular and made it cool and all this other stuff. So everyone is kind of stealing from him on how to play those funk lines on Berry. So with this setup, that's one of my favorite things to do. just like those funk articulated lines. So much fun on a Berry saxophone.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, thank you very much for being with us tonight. It was really great. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope all the guys here enjoyed it too. And
Thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
yeah, so yeah, good luck with your school. It seems to have a great start, so I guess it will keep on growing, and we talk again soon. And yeah,
That's good.
hope you can come to Paris at some point when you can all travel again.
Yeah, me too. I hope we can go to Europe at some point. Right now, we can't leave the country really. So hopefully all of that craziness ends. In the meantime, just keep practicing the saxophone.
Yes. So have a great day. In Europe, have a good night, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.